Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Ryan Dalton, Dalton, and he came to my attention as an expert and specialist in human trafficking. I've done a lot of shows about human trafficking. I just reposted about 15 episodes on my investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, a known human trafficker, among other criminal activity. He was really a criminal mastermind. If you include investigations into his drug trafficking, his strange financial deals, and all that other stuff, Epstein was really something else. And we were talking in the pre-show about Epstein. And it's still important because he's part of a larger tapestry of this human trafficking, which, according to the information I have, is as large as the drug trade, which is extraordinary. So it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Is probably a low ball. But we were talking in the pre-show about this girl, Hayden Panettiere, who passed away at a very early age. And she was kind of trafficked into these networks. She was taken to a yacht and set up with somebody I don't think she ever named, but she found it to be very disturbing. And this is very consistent with a lot of these other victims of the Epstein network, which is still extant. But Ryan, for people who don't know, I was listening to some of his shows on some other programs talking about similar subject. But he's an attorney who's admitted to the Tennessee bar, the JD from University of Memphis Law School. He's served as a special agent with the U.S. Department of State, where he investigated international sex and labor trafficking, fraud schemes involving the dark web, and cryptocurrencies. And he was deployed to crisis environments across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East to protect 3 secretaries of state. He's managed intelligence analysts and refined actionable information for the intelligence community. He's also a human rights lawyer focused on sex trafficking research. So he's the right person to talk about this subject. He's authored counter trafficking studies, delivered congressional briefings on victim protection. He's also the 3-time recipient of the Superior Honor Award from the Department of State and has published on abolishing sex trafficking online and Tennessee's fight against human trafficking. So it's really happening. It happens here. I live in LA. And there's like horrible stuff that happens. Like I don't have to drive too far down the freeway, and there's like a main street where people who are not from the United States are on the street, like, and they're not all over 18 too. So it's really bad here in certain parts of LA, not where I live, but this is an ongoing problem, and I'm happy to have him here to discuss this. In general, we might get into Epstein. We're talking the pre-show. We have kind of a different take on what happened to Epstein in 2019, but that might be interesting to discuss as well. So, Ryan Dalton, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So, for people who may not have heard you, you've been on other shows. Sean Ryan, I think, is the guy's name, like one of the bigger shows recently. If you could add to your background anything about how you got interested in this particular topic, and then like what you've been doing since you left the State Department.
Yeah, I began my career as a lawyer wanting to work against sex trafficking. And I learned about that through some of my undergraduate research, but also encountering it overseas in my travels, and had a friend when I was 18 years old that was building a halfway house for women coming out of a red light district in Mexico, in Reynosa, right across the border. And these women were forced to stay in these cartel districts, basically. And they were there against their will. They couldn't leave. And we didn't know to call it sex trafficking at the time. We just knew that this was very wrong. And we'd go down there in the summer times and help her build her halfway house for these women who eventually would get out. Some of them would finally get let go, and did that for a few summers in college. And later on, I sort of connected what this was is, oh, these people are here against their will. This is under force, fraud, and coercion. And it seemed meaningful to spend my career working against human trafficking. And that's where I've spent the majority of my career.
So you've been in sex trafficking, you've gotten into that. So you've seen it in firsthand, though, internationally. And then what have you been doing in the relations to in your work career at the State Department, as far as any specifics that you can provide?
Yeah, of course. So I was a federal agent at the U.S. Department of State for 5 years. Part of that time, I spent investigating human trafficking, labor trafficking, and sex trafficking. So, two of my big cases, one of them was a sex trafficking scheme where this guy was bringing girls over from Central and South America to basically force work at strip clubs. And the other was some foreign diplomats that brought over a nanny who was forced to work 7 days a week, like some crazy amount, like 18 hours a day, and was unpaid for it. So both sides of the two types of trafficking that occur in the United States, and got to investigate both during that time.
So that's it. So that's still kind of, I think, one aspect of the trafficking is these women are brought by the cartels and they're moved around all the time, is my understanding. So they actually go on, so they're never traced. So they go to like Philadelphia for a month and then New York for a month or something like that. And all the while they're kind of indentured servants if they're not slaves. I think Jeffrey Epstein was involved in enslaving these girls, in my opinion, that he was actually more closer to a slave trader than a trafficker. Um, but would you agree that some of this is kind of was is close to maybe fitting the definition of modern enslavement?
Yeah, absolutely. There's more slaves now than there ever have been in history. And a lot of times these traffickers are just using it to get rich. But Jeffrey Epstein was different because they're using people to become more powerful. He was using it to get blackmail and to achieve the goals of whoever his sponsors are. And the cost of that was the lives of children.
Right. So he was doing a lot of stuff, and we were talking the pre-show. He was doing it before, like back when they had floppy disks. So basically the '90s, even the '80s. Like he was born in '53, I think.
Yeah.
So I think he really got started in his 20s. And so there's a lot of information. Even the Epstein files, the EFTA, the Epstein, um, what is it? The Epstein Files Transparency Act only had like the emails only went back until the time of email, really early 2000s, if that. And so there's a lot of history that's gone, that's opaque or missing about Epstein. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's some interesting pieces of missing evidence. So the absence of evidence in some places is fascinating. Are you familiar at all with the forensic canyon between 1999 and 2001?
No, can you explain that, please?
The Epstein files were serialized, so they all have a number that's attached to a date. And there were some very astute researchers who looked at all of these and serialized them and attached them to the dates and used AI to understand when the information relates to each of the files that was released. And what they discovered was that between 1999 and 2001, there's nothing that was released, which is fascinating. Some big things happened during those 2 years.
It sure did. And the anniversary for one of those happenings is literally within the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's really not that far away.
Yeah, I
September
think that
11th, 2001. Yeah.
you might find some things about both 9/11 and the .com crash in those files, if I had to guess. If I was a betting man, that's what I would think you're going to find.
He was always involved in technology. You see that goes through the EFTA. So not only is he involved in human trafficking, he was a plate spinner. He had a lot of things going on in different things. And that first, actually lived. It changed my life. Actually, that first bubble when it blew up. That's why I moved to LA, because that was like right around 2000, 2001 is when it cratered like Silicon Valley. It was actually Google. It wasn't even around at that time, believe it or not. Not in a big way, but it is interesting. So you think that he might have some early connections there, like to those events, to maybe even. Do you know where Epstein was on September 11th, 2001? Are you aware of that?
I
I'm not.
don't. Do you?
I don't need. No, I don't.
There's
I
little
think.
clues about this. There was an email to Ghislaine where someone asked her if she wants to be on the Shadow 9/11 Commission. And she declines, at least in the email, she declines. But she's invited to whatever this Shadow Commission is, whatever that means. And that's really all we get about 9/11. There seems to be some intent to include her on this shadow hand that's trying to influence the 9/11 Commission. If I had to guess in those files, there's more about that.
Right. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's so many redactions in what the public got that I think it's one of those huge cover-ups. Um, in 2025, this whole thing was a huge cover-up because of the redactions. But what kind of seeped out is still bad. But I think that he was involved in. I think some of this human trafficking is at an industrial level. It's almost like some kind of trafficking like they would do back in like Rome or something. Like it's really crazy, like systematic, looking for people, trafficking out of Eastern Europe to the States, people who couldn't speak English, people who couldn't adapt, didn't know the system very well, disadvantaged, poor. You mentioned Mexico at the intro, and I think they brought a lot of people up from Mexico and South America, Brazil, and these other places, and like who knows what happened to them? Like they just didn't. They weren't the ones that were on the Epstein list because they didn't speak English or didn't know how to handle problems. I mean, the payouts were extraordinary. I think it's over $500 million to Epstein victims, but it just shows the enormity of the problem, right?
Yeah, he was aggressive and systematized. He had model scouts that were always trying to recruit girls, always looking for girls. Ghislaine seemed to be directly involved in this at times. Yeah, it was clearly a centerpiece of this strategy that he was using for blackmail and intelligence collection.
Right. So in this kind of sex trafficking environment, do you think that his arrest was kind of organic? It just came up because that it was just about time to get him because he was in the news down in Florida, or was it because they wanted to fake his disappearance and death? Like his work was done. It was time to take a spy and bring him out of the cold, so to speak, and let him live. Right? Isn't that your kind of opinion?
Yeah, I believe he left that cell alive. The arrest is the piece that I can only speculate about. He got arrested at the airport flying from Paris to New York. Um, or
Yeah,
yeah, coming from
Teterboro, New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yeah. So he gets off the airplane and he's arrested. Now, was this deliberate? And this was part of the this sort of overall strategy for dealing with Epstein. I think more likely that this was not homogenous, meaning that the DOJ and the FBI, sometimes the right hand isn't talking to the left hand. Guys like Epstein don't get arrested, right? People like Maxwell don't stay in jail. People like Epstein don't stay in jail. We know this. There's two justice systems in the United States. This isn't a surprise to anybody. So why arrest them in all in the first place? And my best guess is that we don't have this very uniform DOJ and FBI. There's people in there that see things differently. And so I would guess he gets arrested, and then we see that Bill Barr gets involved. We see that he has connections that are starting to pull strings for him pretty fast after that, right? So why arrest him at all?
Right. No, I mean, there's personal connections between Bill and his dad and Epstein. There's just through the Dalton school. There's no question about it. Um, so it is odd. It's just strange that he gets arrested, taken to the MCC that had like they knew that he was a high value target to take him to there and put him within the special housing unit, right? So he's within a unit within a unit at the Metropolitan Correction Center where they had like drug traffickers from Mexico or something like that. And he had access to his attorneys like every day or something. So it's very. I mean, I think that he thought he was going to get out, but you think that was just a plan. So there was one so-called attempted suicide that took place, I think, in July 24th, 2019, involving Tartaglione. So if you think that he was allowed to leave on the body double, that would mean that suicide attempt was fake, right?
Yeah, I think it's theater, and there's some accounts where he around this time, right after it. I think it's like a nurse or some medical professional makes a comment about his overall disposition and sort of being like playful after this, right? And I think that this is part of the theater that was a prelude to the final suicide that would later be used to support his mental state and mental condition as evidence of he intended to kill himself. I don't believe it's sincere at all.
Right. So all this stuff is just a fake to get him out. So if they establish kind of a semi-elaborate plot to get him out, I think it was what, August 8th or something, 2019. Where, or 10th? Where is he
10th,
now?
yeah, August 10th, 2019. I don't know where he is now, but I can say that there's only three options: that he committed suicide, he was murdered, or he left that cell alive. And the files themselves tell the story. And the fewest problems of those three options is that he left the cell alive. I believe strongly that the evidence from the files shows that the other two options, murder or suicide, have way too many problems if you're continuing with the evidence in good faith. And so I can't say where he is now, but this is the effort of the Epstein Isn't Dead campaign to create a reward offer for someone in his inner circle to betray him with that information.
So you're saying that I'm not aware of this. You're saying that there's an Epstein Isn't Dead kind of group that is trying to pursue that avenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I worked for the Department of State's Rewards for Justice program for a couple of years after being a federal agent. And me and my co-founder created a reward pool based off of our time at Rewards for Justice, where at Rewards for Justice, they'll put out a reward for a bad guy for $5 million. And I was responsible for managing the intelligence that came in for people that were telling us about the world's most wanted terrorists. And we did this using technology for years. We've recreated this for the Epstein Isn't Dead campaign with Closed Horizon, where you go to epsteinisn'tdead.org, O-R-G, and look at the best evidence of the claim that he left that cell alive. And with that is a reward offer that's up to, it's like $55,000 right now that people have contributed. It's like, think GoFundMe for truth, where as that reward pool grows and there's this long-term commitment to truth, it becomes expensive for someone to stay silent. And so if they know that he left that cell alive, they can message us and we'll pay them if we verify that information. And this is what we did for Rewards for Justice for the government, and in combination with people who worked for FBI, military, intelligence. We ran reward programs. So we created one for Epstein.
When you were working for the State Department, did you find that those reward programs were effective?
They're incredibly effective. I mean, you put out enough money out there and someone's going to come forward. And what we use is the technology available to them in their pockets. So instead of going to an embassy or a consulate or talking to a handler out in the field, you just pull up your phone and you message in what you know, and you can do it securely. And so it broke the barrier to access of sensitive information and allowed tradecraft to bring in that information, analyze it, and verify it. Background, and we are doing the same thing for Epstein.
And so if it's just for Epstein, wouldn't you think that there would be other additional co-conspirators? There's two files in those files that were done by Jeffrey Berman, not the judge, but the actual attorney for the Southern District, I think, and SDNY. But there were other co-conspirators. Wouldn't this be worthwhile as a reward system, not just for Jeffrey Epstein, but also any and all other co-conspirators?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is our campaign page, our website. We've created basically GoFundMe for Truth is the best way to know how to think about it, where anyone can create a campaign at closedhorizon.com about whatever question that they have and they want the truth on. So what we do is we connect people who have direct observational evidence. I saw Jeffrey Epstein. I saw the thing. I experienced it. I was there. This is the best kind of evidence. We connect them to the people who want answers to those questions. And there's very, very many kinds of questions that could apply. And so anyone can create a campaign on here. We cover, Charlie Kirk is on there, Las Vegas shooting, Gary Webb. These are examples of some of the ones that have been created: Camp Lejeune, abuse in Southern Baptist Convention, sexual abuse, collusion by energy providers. We want to show people that we don't have to just live in an era of misinformation and disinformation where we just get lied to all the time. you could create a campaign and you can fund it with your network of people who want the same answers that you do, and they'll contribute to it like you would a GoFundMe. And over time, you can grow that reward pool substantial enough that someone comes forward with the information.
Right. So it's some kind of third party, non governmental structure where you're funding whatever it is you want. Like you could do Are UFOs Real? You could do Is the Earth Flat if you wanted, or whatever, something like that. Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to
Yes.
be conspiratorial. It can be something that is much more directly related to your life and your neighborhood, right? Who poisoned the 100-year-old oak tree in the town square? Who vandalized my business? Who lied during due diligence in this company purchase that I did? It's effectively private reward programs. The platform works so well for the government that we wanted to bring it to anyone to be able to use the same technology and tradecraft to get answers to their questions.
Right. Do you know, like under the State Department, how much they paid out in rewards or incentives? Like I
Oh,
know that like there's massive amounts of good money the FBI pays for informants, but I mean some of these payouts are really substantial. They're like seven figures, right?
oh yeah, they've got $250 million since the inception of the program. So $250 million RFJ has paid out to more than 125 individuals. So it works.
So it works.
And we want to bring it to everybody. Everyone can do it. You build your own program, your community funds it, and someone will come forward if the price is right.
And that's you. Like I think you're on this. I got your bio there, and you're working with another ex government employee, Alex Moret.
That's right. It's my co-founder.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Really interesting. People check it out. Close to Horizon. Yeah. I don't know. I just can't believe. I heard a rumor. Have you ever heard the rumor that there was a party in Hollywood a couple days before Epstein was found dead because they knew that they were going to waste him or whack him in jail? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that rumor? I guess he's bounced out. The connection.
I haven't. Who threw the party?
There were parties. That's what I heard.
Oh,
There were multiple parties because everybody was blackmailed. So they had heard in front. Like you want to talk about this is something above board. You have Closed Horizon. Imagine about the dead pool to make sure Epstein never told his tales. Like he was close to very wealthy people who probably did want him to rat them out. So I think the incentive for him to not being above ground, so to speak, was very high, very high. And other people said he was dead. Like, I mean, Bill Gates, but these guys all have private intel or maybe even connections to real intel, but they're saying he's dead. And like even on Trump, I think he had information on Trump. He actually admitted that he had enough information in the new files that he had information on Trump to end Trump. So there's incentives for that guy not to get out and be alive in any way, shape, or form, or using the knowledge of the files. Yeah,
they had incentive to have a public dead defendant and privately clean up loose ends. And so I believe the best read of the evidence shows that they could never have gone to trial because you're an attorney, you know what would have happened. It would have gone to criminal discovery. Plaintiffs, defendants bring everything out, flight logs, records, finances, co-conspirators, associates, build out a timeline, depositions. Nightmare, absolute nightmare in criminal proceedings for them to bring all that out. So you cannot have a live defendant. You got to kill the defendant because that's what stops criminal discovery. However, you have another problem you got to deal with. Your defendant very likely has a dead man switch, has a large body of information that's preserved digitally to be used against heads of state, against sitting leaders of the world, politicians, celebrities. So that's a problem, right? And if he gets killed, they're going to have to contend with that dead man switch. So I believe the best solution was to publicly have a dead defendant and privately move him out of the jail.
interesting. As somebody who worked for the government, do you think that he was working for the U.S. government and giving information to people within the U.S. government when he was free before 2019?
I do. Yeah, I think, and the best evidence we have for that is when Acosta was being vetted for labor secretary. The former, the prosecutor uh, when there's a
Maybe
reporter
we can
that
let's turn off the video. I think that's probably better. I think um,
okay,
we're just lagging a little bit. Let's try
how we
that
doing?
again. Yeah, let's try that now.
We better.
Yeah, so it's a Costa statement that he worked for Intel, right?
Right. Yeah. So Acosta, basically, the short of it is Acosta makes the statement that he worked for Intel. So I think the most likely case was that Epstein was a fixer for Intel agencies, and both private and public. So he admits by his email that he worked for the Rothschilds in an email to Peter Thiel. So I think that he just got things done for a lot of people.
He was a fixer, a closer, a go-to. There were people. I remember Sam Harris was asking him for career advice. So like these people who are in the culture would like ask Epstein, like they must have known that he was this nexus point. So I think that he was, and I mean when he was, I think that when he was raided, the time like the mansion, there were things that were marked FBI. And he actually, at one point in the files, they have him meeting with the current head of the CIA. So these intel connections are there, and certainly for his like guy very close to him, Robert Maxwell, is the same thing. They're all connected to Mossad, MI6. See, they want connections with Intel in America, things like that. It's really incredible that he's not just a human trafficker and a blackmailer. And Howard Lutnick, who lived next to him, said he was like the premier blackmailer of all time, or something like that. So, in addition, he's also sharing information. So it just seems amazing. So he like, and you well, like here's an example. So if the State Department's asking for rewards and they want information, how would somebody who had this secret information or valuable information, how would they safely give it to the State Department and get their reward?
Yeah, when I worked for the State Department, I was with a company as a contractor that modernized this program. Historically, they would call in via a hotline. And the company that I worked for came in and modernized the intelligence sharing process by giving people access to messaging the Rewards for Justice program using the technology in their pocket. They still can, with existing reward offers today, message in via apps like Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, Line, Viber. We've used those before. So they can reach out using what's already installed on their phones, and they can message exactly what they know. They can share documents, pictures, videos. And this is how we have effectively structured our reward program. We want to make it accessible to people where you don't have to go sit and meet with someone like you conventionally would in the human intelligence collection process. You can do it over your phone.
Right. So that's it. So then they would be able to get like the information would go out and then they'd get their reward. Um, what's the best way to kind of forestall? It seems like this trafficking is going on, and some people like the Alexander brothers seem to be big time trafficker, or they were abusing the girls. But how do these elite trafficking networks, how do they get wrapped up? How do they get investigated? And also kind of this international trafficking rings that are happening now in the United States. Like why are they still ongoing? There's just so much going on, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. Human trafficking, it depends on why the trafficker is um, actually doing the crime. So, what is their motivation? Well, for a lot of these traffickers, it's just to get rich. They want to make a lot of money. And if you are able to sell a person over and over and over again, it's like unlike drugs where you can sell drugs one time. Human trafficking, you can sell people repeatedly in sex trafficking, for example, where you force them to commit commercial sex acts. My read on the Epstein situation is a bit different. He was using sex trafficking as a means to achieve power and leverage. And he knew that if he could get people to have sex with children, he could use that for his blackmail scheme. And so his end game wasn't money like it is for most traffickers. It was power and leverage and control. And he was very successful at it for decades.
Right. Did you find any evidence that he was actually getting he was literally blackmailing people and they had to give him money? Because I didn't find that. So that kind of validates what you just said, is that he wasn't doing it for the money. He wanted the leverage, right?
Yeah, he wanted the leverage. He wanted people to make decisions that were consistent with whoever his handlers were. So I don't believe that he was the boss of anything. He was a asset that was used to achieve their ends. And I think he was so successful at it because he had the characteristics of a person who would be willing to do nearly anything and not be bothered by their conscience. And so he was a useful person for people who could continue to gain and consolidate power using sex trafficking.
Yeah, he didn't seem to have much of a conscience. That's actually admitted in the files. Um, yeah, it's really incredible. And do you think that there's elements, really dark things about the Epstein files where they are either inducing abortions or early pregnancies for these kids? And this is a part of the ongoing investigation. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but what's going on at Zorro Ranch in the investigation through New Mexico, but like this weird kind of infant or baby trafficking. Do you think that was happening? And like what's happening to those babies? Do you know? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm rooting though for the Epstein Truth Commission in New Mexico. That's a really neat thing that exists out there, to have a legislative body grant the creation of this Epstein Truth Commission at the state level. I would love to see a proper federal Epstein Truth Commission like the one they have in New Mexico.
Right. No, it's incredible. And for people who don't know, the New Mexico uh, group put out this interim commission thing. This was actually done on August 5th. Today's the 20th. So 2 weeks ago, they put this out, and they actually have a phone number. So if you know information in New Mexico, you can actually do this. But this report, I should do a separate show on this because it is interesting, but it just shows all this stuff that happened in the ranch and the acquisition, how far it goes back, investigative areas, sexual abuse and trafficking, the topic of today's show. But it's 120 pages. It's very well done. So this isn't the end investigation. It's just letting people know what they've been doing since they passed. And you can see the date right here on the first page, August 5th, 2006. But since they passed this $2 million set aside to investigate what happened at the ranch, after one of the files in the Epstein file said that there were 2 dead bodies there. There's a bunch of sketchy emails too about Zorro Ranch, and I've seen pictures and photographs that are literally blow your mind about that, or in the files that really aren't public yet, about the ranch. And he put his Massacre of the Innocents 9x9 pictures of the slaughter of like a biblical thing right on the entryway of the Epstein Zorro Ranch, which is really something else. Ryan, do you have time for a few questions? People are asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, of course. Would love to.
All right, give me a sec. Let me see if I can get this out here. Let's see. Does Ryan have Jeff says, does Ryan have any info on the Podesta brothers, referring to their European trip where they were identified as the two men who abducted that young girl? I think that's the Madeline McCann case. That's a rumor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I can't imagine that John Podesta wasn't aware of some of the goings on during Hillary's tenure there. That I think that you're going to find there's too much smoke there for there not to be some fire. I'm not willing to speculate beyond that, but I can't imagine that he is squeaky clean. So,
gotcha. Did Ryan see Julian Dory's clip premise of the false front corner of a cell that Epstein was ushered out before suicide body was planted? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I did see that. So Julian Dory did this basically investigative analysis with Andrew Bustamante, who recreated the cell that Epstein was in, and they discovered that there was a area not visible from the door, where sort of around the corner, there was this false area that someone could hide in, which was not on any of the schematics in the prison. They also discovered that the DOJ OIG report, the OIG report for the prison and DOJ documents do not show the same prison cell, which is a really great finding. That's great investigative analysis. So they recreate this and basically conclude that there's no way he could have killed himself. He could not have jumped and generated the force needed to strangle himself or break his neck in that room without hurting the back of his head, and there was no damage to the back of his head. So they did great work on that. I'm a big fan of Dory's work on the Epstein stuff. I don't know really what that means. I'm a bit unclear on how they would have moved the body in and out of there if there was this false area, but it's a really great finding. I think deserves further explanation.
Gotcha. And Jay Farina asked, what administration did you work or serve under, sir?
Yeah, so I protected 3 secretaries of state. I protected Kerry, Pompeo, and Tillerson.
Tillerson, that's right, Rex Tillerson. So that was 2016 to 20. How long did Tillerson didn't last very long, right? 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a character, man. He was funny. I got to drive his limo for him a few times, where I was the driver doing his protection. And
I think he's a Texas oil guy, right?
Yeah, he seemed pretty genuine, and genuine people don't last long in DC.
Hidden attacker on the yacht was British pop singer cannibal James Blount, who made a selfie humiliation ritual video. Yeah, that's the rumor. I've seen pictures of Blount and Hayden Panettiere together. Brian Taylor said Ghislaine was running things. Yeah, I think that she was Epstein still had his kind of like New York borough accent. She was very sophisticated and grew up around and with money. So I think that she was definitely there. Why is this happening in the USA? Yeah, it's incredible. This stuff is still going on, guys. This trafficking thing is going on. Somebody thinks that this guy Peter Simmons. Have you ever heard of Palm Beach Pete? He just looks like Epstein. It's not him. Come on.
Yeah, I don't. I think that Palm Beach Pete is a sophisticated psychological operation. You know, we didn't see Palm Beach Pete in 2019. We didn't see him until the files were released, and suddenly he's on all these Instagram and TikTok reels with all these influencers. This really feels like it's completely fabricated. Like this was put here to distract and to soften Epstein. So when people watch these reels and they're entertained by them, and he's doing all these funny things and he's talking all goofy, I believe that this is a effort to soften the Epstein conversation and make it fun for people and take away from the horror of it, so that they're not so outraged that they're demanding the release of the rest of these files.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because this is horrible stuff and it permeated the entire culture, the civilization. Epstein was invited to film premieres and he backed things and backed companies and the culture and certain people. And if you look at like Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, as part of the Epstein network, which you should, this is like permeating Hollywood. And Epstein went to Hollywood. Like there's stories of him and Virginia Giuffre, rest in peace, going to Hollywood and seeing all his buddies in Hollywood. George Clooney was the name that I forgot, who was like connected to Ghislaine Maxwell, and this girl Selena Jenkins and Hayden Panettiere. Like the web is just absolutely incredible. Is there anything you'd like to add? I mean, we're at the 40-minute mark. Anybody have any other questions or anything? I mean, what do you see on the horizon of like human trafficking? Like, how is the link for this page? I'll put it up again. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover?
Yeah, I would just say you check out our website, epsteinsandead.org. We have the best evidence on there, where we lay out 20 plus 24, something like that, pieces of information. And we walk the reader through his early days when he began with a foreign passport that was under an alias and not issued to him by anyone probably other than an intelligence service. You can click view evidence and see the documentation that we put up. And so what we do is lay out all of these claims and then source them directly from the files. So this is on the screen. You could see his fake identity that was an Austrian passport under the name Robert Marius. And this is the first connection that we have really to an intelligence service, where a passport can be issued legitimately by a consular office, but a fake one that you can actually travel on, or fraudulent, I guess is a better word, is issued by our intel services or foreign intel services. And so we can start to see his connections even from a young age with the young Epstein on there. And that's one example of the information that's on the site. And we walk the reader through all of the claims that are pulled from the evidence to show the best evidence he isn't dead. There's one particular piece of information on here that we call the smoking. And this is a 2-note on legal paper that is still evidencing his escape plan. And we'll ask Ryan, well, if he's going to get out, why would he leave his escape plan in there? And I remind people that Epstein used Gmail to talk about trafficking and eating children. So he didn't really exactly have great operational security. And this was always something that someone else could clean up, and he's not worried about getting in actual trouble because he's already had a sweetheart deal once. He's not too worried about it. It can happen again. So we break this down piece by piece by piece. That one right there, that's the smoking gun that you just scrolled to if you click view evidence. This is 2 pieces of legal paper that evidence his escape plan. So tell me why, if you go up to the top up there, a guy who just spent the last 2 days with his lawyers, or longer, but 2 days before, he has a trust that moves $577 million into holdings that can't be identified. And then this note is discovered from his cell. You can see there right there in the top middle, it says red notice. So why is a guy who just moved all of his money into something that we can't identify and tells his girlfriend the night before on the phone, I won't be able to talk to you for a month? So you can look that up. That's also in the files. He assures her.
Karina Shuliak or whatever her name is.
That's right. Yep. So he talks to her privately on a line where he lies and said he's talking to his mother, and then is connected to her when she is in Belarus. And then the next day, this note is discovered as part of the cleanup in his cell. And it says red notices right there in the top middle. So why is a guy who is about to unalive himself concerned about an Interpol red notice, which is a worldwide notice to policing agencies that there's a fugitive out there? And this is one example of many pieces of intent that is shown on this piece of paper, including an airport, which is written there in the bottom right as Brad. So Bradley International Airport is 2 hours away. And this would be a great airport of choice for someone who doesn't want to go to JFK or doesn't want to go to LaGuardia, someone who wants to move out of the United States without going to one of the major airports. So you can go through that whole page and you can see exactly how he considered all the problems, where to go, how to fly there, which countries to go to, how to get money, his computer in the Virgin Islands that he needs to get to, considerations about Ghislaine. He's got a drawing there that looks like it could be Cyprus. This is an escape plan. This is
Nigeria. I see there. He's got the U.S. government claim, some kind of stuff, a box, like a shipping box. Yeah, it's all very strange. But that's his handwriting. You can see the same handwriting on his chalkboard, I think, on the Little St. James. So
that's right.
It's pretty much validated that it's his. But
and if you scroll down, and you can't see it because it's upside down, but that second to last line from the bottom, it says jail out equals 10 if you flip it upside down. And so this indicates foreknowledge. He knows that he's going to be out of jail on August 10th. And sure enough, dead or alive, he's out of jail on August 10th, 2019. So he restructures his entire estate with complex estate planning, assures his girlfriend he'll be able to talk to her in a month, has his escape plan written out here. The cameras fail. He doesn't have a roommate. He's in a place that is prime for extraction. And then on August 10th, 2019, he's no longer in that jail cell, and it's corroborated by his own handwriting, knowing this on this document.
That's incredible stuff, man. If he got out, it's just crazy. Fake visas. I mean, this is what this guy's life was fake names, and he had like at least 5 pseudonyms. Like he would say his middle name, so it was Jeff. Forgot Edwards. That's it, because he was Jeffrey Edward Epstein, but he would call himself Jeffrey Edwards and all kinds of stuff. Wow, shower star for 1 hour. No, send a bunch of burnt food. Giant gimp bugs country on my head's no fun. So, do you think that somebody's dictating this to him, and so that's why he's writing the notes, because he's meeting with one of his attorneys or something like that? Because his attorney said he wasn't suicidal, right? So they're like, no way, And he kept saying he wasn't suicidal too. Yeah.
Consider his profile. He's a billionaire, so billionaires generally have a little bit of ego, and he's also a child trafficker, fixer, and he's obsessed with longevity. This guy did not kill himself. No way. These meetings, allegedly with his attorneys, I believe that there were attorneys in the room, but you could also bring other people into those rooms who claimed to be attorneys that were responsible for helping him get out. Would not have been hard to do it. You could have him meet with these individuals, and he spent up to 12 hours a day with them. So this was prolonged meeting that were well beyond the norm. He was always meeting with these attorneys. Probably didn't like being alone in his cell, is my guess. But
there's a way to get out of the cell. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And this is on legal paper. So who has a legal paper? Attorneys do. So he's writing down the escape plan as he's with these attorneys. And I would love to know who signed in to go meet with Jeffrey Epstein and who his attorneys were that were in that cell with him, or within the jail with him when he was there, because we can see on this paper, this legal paper, this is an evasion plan. This is not just escape. This is how to get out and how to escape, and the considerations around someone evading the law.
Why do you think some of this is redacted too? Like, what's on the redactions? Like, this should be unredacted immediately. Like, why did somebody want that redacted?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Why do we have it at all? Is what I want to know.
Right. I don't think that stuff was ever supposed to meet the public, all the MCC stuff. This is remarkable. So I inverted it, and it says like Florida invoice, Florida INB, it looks like. Nothing at all. Straw? No sign me. No something. But jail out 10. 1 to 10 or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's when he supposedly died.
He knew when he was getting out, and he's got the plan to show for it. How to get out, where to go, which airport to go to, considerations around what kind of aircraft is moving him, which country to go to, how to get money. It's all there. You can see that all in these documents, these 2 documents here. And this is the smoking gun. This is the single piece of information that no one's talking about, that's not getting any play. The New York Times released an article on why their analysis concluded in their investigation that he committed suicide in that cell. And what they don't contend with at all is the most difficult pieces of information in the Epstein case. This being one of them. There's others as well, but they don't talk about the girlfriend's call the night before. They don't talk about the note here that was found in his cell, either of them. They're completely unmentioned. They don't talk about the drone footage that was taken by a YouTuber after his alleged death at Little St. James that shows someone who looks just like Epstein. None of the best evidence is contended with in good faith. And when you do, and when you look at it, it paints the picture that he left that cell alive.
Peachy Flamingo asks, who has taken over J.E.'s position? Do you think that somebody else has now fit the role of blackmailer in chief?
Yeah, I'm sure. They didn't miss a beat. If I had to guess, there's someone that the next day picked this up. I mean, if you don't have a soul and just don't have you're a person without a conscience, like, it's a dream job, right? Like, everybody else who has a conscience and a soul don't want anything to do with it. But if you get to just rub shoulders with the world's elite and make a bunch of money while doing it and accrue power, I'm sure that there were people that were lining up to take over the next Jeffrey Epstein job.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he lived kind of the life of a spy, like traveling everywhere, wherever he wanted to. Switzerland, all over all the nicest places people wanted to go. And his black book reflects that. Like he had an incredible network. Like for a guy who like came out like never had a college degree that I know of, he lived a charmed life. Like he never worried about money, that's for sure. Constantly had
Yeah.
money and was paying people off and all kinds of stuff. Really extraordinary. Um, we are at the 50-minute mark. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything I missed? Really interesting. Like this jail out 1 = 10. Something else. Nothing at
Yeah.
all.
Have you seen that before?
Yeah, but I didn't invert it and I didn't know what it meant. So I have come
Right.
across. I mean, I went through all the MCC stuff. Like I've done MCC shows, and I'm of the opinion he did not get out. And I think that guy, the picture, a lot of those pictures are interesting, but the look-alike of Epstein on the Little St. James is coincidental for me. I just
Yeah.
don't think they would let him live. I just don't. I think he had too many enemies. See, the people who are getting blackmailed, they don't know they're getting blackmailed. They're getting favors, or they're looking at any like weird sexual kinks that they have. He's helping them, but they don't know. And then all of a sudden they realize, oh my God, this guy's intel and he's black. He's got information on me, and they don't like it. And some of that stuff leaks. Like Bill Gates lost half of his value, his net worth to his wife after the Epstein information came out. So she divorced him because of it. So he has a grudge. He has an interest in setting something straight, in my opinion. So I think he's one of many. There's a lot of people when Epstein got arrested or the information started coming out in 2018, 2019, there were a lot of nervous men all over the United States with wealth and power who were having very tense dinners with their significant others because Epstein had all that information on him somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there were a lot of people who were real nervous when
yeah.
all this started to come out.
So I think that the incentive for him to go to another place is good. It's high there. Bring a great interview. Thank you, William and Ryan. Yeah, guys, check out the website. Let me pull it back up here again. This is really interesting. Let's see if I can find where's it. The Epstein isn't dead.org. So let me pull that up. Here it is again. You guys can go participate. You can go add your information and add stuff. This has been up since March. You can add your money or whatever and see if you can get a reward and see if it would really change history if they found that guy alive. I can tell you that. It would be something
Absolutely,
else.
it would.
But his story, I mean, these are real stories. The real spies, they really can't tell their stories. They're almost like arch Satanists too, in the way that they can never tell their full story. This guy's connected to Ehud Barak, which is like at the top of Israeli intel and the intel political system. Apparently, his Epstein's connection to Netanyahu were also redacted in those redactions that took place in 2025. So they're trying to, and some of it to Trump too. But
yeah, Ehud Barak stayed in his New York apartment.
Yeah, there's pictures of him going in and out of there, in and out of the mansion. So it's not arguable, as well as the prince. Like the royal family has incredible resources and power, and they're connected to masonry and all kinds of the oldest kind of money in the world. They used to run the empire up until 1945, so not that long ago. So the remnants of that empire are still around. They're very powerful and they can do a lot of stuff. So Jeff was right there with Prince Philip, Prince Andrew, excuse me.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else
He
you'd
really
like to
took
add?
publicly, didn't he? Yeah.
He sure
thanks for
did.
having
Yeah.
me on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I encourage people to go check it out, make your own conclusion, and if you believe in it, we'd love your support. But you can check us out at Instagram at Closed Horizon, and EpsteinIsn'tDead.org is our campaign site. And if you want to build your own campaign about anything important to you that you want truth for and fund it, build your campaign at ClosedHorizon.com.
Yeah, ClosedHorizon.com, EpsteinIsn'tDead.org. And just there's a lot of food for thought here. There's no question about it. And again, the guest is Ryan Dalton, Dalton. Thanks so much for your time and for all your information. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, stay there.